Hello all, Shadwell here, ready to talk about the next film in my collection, Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992. It's directed by Francis Ford Coppola and stars Gary Oldman and Anthony Hopkins. Well, we're less than 400 reviews into this project of mine, we're not in the D section, and yet we're on our second adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula. If you're lucky, you'll have forgotten that we already covered Argento's Dracula back in the A's, but this adaptation isn't total shit. In fact, I believe back in the review for Argento's Dracula, I had pointed out that adaptations of the novel Dracula usually stray wildly from the source material, but this film, Bram Stoker's Dracula, does do a good job of playing it close to the novel. Of course, seeing how the novel was written in letters and journal entries, that does make adaptations difficult, but luckily I've read the novel at least 3 times, and even though my memory is shit, I can still remember enough to know that this film is a pretty faithful adaptation. The only thing that comes closer is Nosferatu, but I'll be covering that more in depth when we get in the end section of my collection. I will say, as far as this film goes, I absolutely hate the font they use in the credits. Something about how the A's look like unfinished triangles just really irks me for reasons. This film does show us many different faces of Gary Oldman, who is playing the eponymous Dark Lord, but I like to focus more on the unhinged performance from Anthony Hopkins as Van Helsing. It isn't often Anthony Hopkins is left to his own devices and looks like he's having way too much fun on the screen, but this is one of those movies and I am here for it. There's a scene where he humps Billy Campbell's leg while talking about Lucy becoming the devil's oar or something, and I think this is my second favorite part of the film because my favorite part is, of course, Tom Waits as Renfield. He is golden. And right here I could fit in a Tom Waits inspired quote from my favorite series, Sports Night, but I will refrain. Fuck it. Do you know how often Tom Waits plays clubs? Okay, I'll stop and move on. This adaptation is really good, except the prologue origin story they created for Dracula, which I found to be the weakest part of the film. Which is a bummer because it's what the whole love story revolves around, making it weaker in turn, instead of being the standout of the film. Instead, we have the many faces of Gary Oldman and a hump-happy Anthony Hopkins. Although I'm not complaining about either, let's be clear, but seeing how this film wanted to be a love story, it's important to recognize that it only slightly misses that mark. I'm giving Bram Stoker's Dracula an A-, and tomorrow we watch the Jodie Foster starring film, The Brave One. See y'all then.